systems go. Clear for liftoff.
Hey, what's up, everybody? I am here with MB Habes on the leaderboards, aka Sheets in Discord and on Twitter. We're here to break down this UFC Nashville card for you guys, and I have one of the best minds in the DFS space to talk about this card with me. I'm looking forward to talking, an hour or so of fights with you, Sheets. How you feeling about this card?
Pretty good. So one of the best minds in DFS, is he going to be joining us later or something else? No, I really appreciate you having me here. I don't know what kind of people are watching this, what type of analysis they're looking for. I don't want to get too technical. I don't want to get too far into the weeds. Just kind of have some fun and break down what we think about the DFS card. Listen, I feel the same about every card. I don't really care who's fighting. They're giving 100,000 for first away. I mean, I'm kind of playing it. It's cool that you do have, at least for now, a full 12 fight card. And the way I like to look at it from GPPs is that if it's a 12 fight card where the main event is not 100% mandatory, then you could kind of play it and from a GPP perspective. But we'll go through it fight by fight, and we'll see what we like here.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it is going to be a tough one with so many big favorites on this card. I also have a lot of early finishes projected for this card too, so I think there's going to be a lot of big scores. But you'll be the one that tells me how to get different on this card, because that's where I'm going to be struggling for sure. But I'm ready to get right into it if you are.
Sure, let's do it.
All right, let's do it. Let's start. I'm not sure this is the order of the fights, but I'll go in order of the stone here over at SHIPITNation.com. We have in the first fight, Mike Davis minus 1,200 versus Mitch Ramirez plus 750. Fight to end inside the distance, and this one is minus 135. And to me, this matchup just doesn't make a whole lot of sense. I don't know what good it does for Mike Davis. He's coming off a bad loss, but it was against much tougher competition and Fraziem. And then Mitch Ramirez on the other end, he's 0-2 in the UFC. 2 TKO losses, and I just don't know where he has any edges in this fight. This one is going to be tough because I do think Mike Davis gets a finish at some point. I think he's the better striker. I think he's the better wrestler. But if it's not in the first round, I don't know if he's going to do enough for work along the way to pay off his price tag against all these other guys in the range as well. Mitch Ramirez on the other end, I'm probably just going to X him out, make my pool a little smaller. With 150, you probably got to take a couple shots on guys like him. I just don't think I'm going to have 150 lineups this week. What are you thinking? You're probably a little higher on Ramirez, I'm guessing, than me.
Well, not real. I mean, I'm a little higher in that I really don't ever X anybody out, because you know what? When you're young like you and, you have, smaller children, you could see things in black and white, like you could X guys out, say stuff's not going to happen. But you grow a little older like me and you see all kinds of stupid shit happen in the world. It's not really something that can never happen or something that always happens. It's always something in the range of percentages, So even though Davis is like a 90% favorite to win, you know what that means? That means that Ramirez is going to win the fight 10% of the time, whether you like it or not. So I don't really X anybody out. Now, with that said, even if you don't X him out, you probably won't get too much of him anyway. So here's the thing about Davis, and I thought actually we were going to start with the women's fight, and it's pretty much the same analysis. So here's the good thing about Davis. So he's probably going to win the fight, right? Like 90% of the time. According to the inside the distance line, he's going to win the fight inside the distance about half the time, maybe a little bit more, right? He's like minus 130 or so inside the distance, and that's nice. And he also has some takedown upside if he chooses to go that way, and that's nice. And all those metrics are really kind of decent and indicative of like a $9,100 fighter. Okay. And that's the problem. I mean, when you're 97, is he the 9,700 one? I mean, at 9,700, I mean, you can't just look at it as what he's going to do, because this is a lineup game. I mean, you've got to, let's say you get lucky and he does outscore all the other guys. It's just not so easy, because now with a $9,700 salary gone, now you need at least one punt, okay, maybe even two. So for me, it's almost like it doesn't even matter what the matchup is at 9,700. It's just so hard to get there in the optimal lineup that, I don't know, if you talk about stars and how to rank fights, I listen, if I run SaberSim and I run, all kinds of lineups, I might get to some of this, but I can't imagine wanting to play a $9,700 fighter that looks like a $9,100 fighter. And that's just basically it. So if I were like hand building, if I was advising this, I would play none of this fight. And the cool thing is because Davis's metrics are not that great relative to his price, I don't particularly think he's going to be like 40%, 50% owned or anything like that. So even if you do play Ramirez and he wins the fight 10% of the time, it's not as if you're getting just insane leverage against Davis anyway. So I'm inclined to just kind of sit, watch this fight, accept the fact that Davis is going to score well, probably get 105, 110, and let someone else try to figure out how to make the rest of their lineups work with $9,800 gone, and not me.
I think that's the perfect way to go about it. And if you don't like him at 9,700, you're going to hate him at 9,800. So that's even harder to get to. I think that's the way to go about it, is just expect him to get around 100 and hope that that's not going to cut it, because I do think there's people that have the same ceiling for a lower price tag on this card. So I'll have a lot more of them. And I might change this to a 2-star on my rankings here. I think you just talked me into that as we went. But yeah, you did mention the Klein fight. I think there's going to be a lot of similar talking points in that one when we get to it. But the next one on the list here, we got Kennedy Nzechukwu minus 210 favorite against Walter Walker plus 180. This one is minus 140 to end inside the distance. And I do like this fight. I like both sides of this fight because I think it's, not necessarily binary, but I give Kennedy a big edge on the feet and I give Walker the edge on the ground. If Walker can't get takedowns in this fight, I think Kennedy probably pieces him up, maybe puts him away, and that could be in any round here. But on the other end, as an underdog at $7,400, if Walker's going to win this fight, I think it has to come through the ground. That could come through multiple takedowns along the way in a decision win. But I think it's also a lot of front-loaded wrestling, in my opinion, because I don't know if he has the cardio for 3 rounds of wrestling, but he could get a submission in round 1 and score 100 points as a $7,400 underdog. So I like both sides of this fight. It might just be easier for me to get to Walker, and I'll have more leverage on him for that reason. But I plan on getting a good amount of both sides of this one. My pick, though, is going to be Kennedy by TKO. I think Walker might win the first round, start to slow down. The takedowns don't come as easy after that. And then Kennedy kind of pieces them up in the second, maybe puts them away in the third. But I might have leverage on both sides of this one. What are you thinking?
Yeah, so if you want to give some extra bonus betting coverage, I got some crazy bets to throw out there also if you're going to get into that stuff.
Sure.
But, okay, this is a very important fight to talk about because, first of all, from a fundamental perspective, all right, you're looking at Walker, and he's coming off of 2 straight submission wins, okay, which is all great, except if you look deeper into it, he basically did that to probably the 2 guys with the worst takedown defense maybe in the UFC, between Talfa and Dontel Mays. So the idea that he could just kind of do the same thing to Kennedy is kind of asking for trouble. However, in DFS, it's not the same as betting. Like in betting, you have to look at the line and say, okay, something's wrong with this line. I believe that something's going to happen that's mispriced. But in DFS, you kind of have to assume that the line is kind of accurate. So what you said is perfect, is that if in fact Walker does win, it's going to be because he gets the takedowns. Because 2 straight submission wins, getting takedowns, there's no way he doesn't try to do the same thing. Okay, so he's going to try to do this, and he's only like 2-1 underdog, maybe with the VIG like plus 180. So the fact is he's going to win the fight, like I said, about 40, maybe 35% of the time. So, and in those wins, as you mentioned, there's just no way he doesn't score. because he's not winning a fight where he doesn't get takedowns, honestly, like you said, because Kennedy has him so covered on the feet. So I do think that Walker is almost a mandatory underdog to kind of put in your pool. And for all the reasons you said, like Kennedy he's a pretty solid inside the distance line. And if in fact, Walker doesn't get the takedowns, he's going to be in for a world of trouble. I mean, and I can see this fight going kind of another way, which I actually, you have your pick as Kennedy by TKO. I remember a very similar fight where Kennedy was against I think Devin Clark. And it was the same type of thing. Like, I thought Devin Clark would get takedowns. And at the end of the day, Clark went for takedowns and Kennedy just freaking wrapped him up and front choked him and got a submission of his own. So that's something that I don't think people are going to be expecting. But if Walker's going to be going for these takedowns, don't think that he can't get submitted himself. Okay, so if you want a little bit more of an underdog play betting wise, I kind of like that. But for DFS, I totally agree with you. I think both sides of this are very important. I would make this, I guess, if I had to, a 4-star or something like that. And I think you really should be playing this in all formats.
Kennedy by submission around plus 850 or so. Not bad, not bad. I don't know if I'm going to join you on that, but I definitely wouldn't be completely shocked if it did happen. A front choke, put him away during one of the takedowns. I'm not against it, but it makes me like Kennedy a little bit more. I was actually messing around with just a single entry before we started, just seeing what I could put together real fast, and Kennedy ended up in that lineup. So we'll see if he stays in my single entry or not. All right, next one on the card. We have, I think, my least favorite DFS fight on the card. Chris Curtis is a minus 300 favorite against Max Griffin at plus 250. Fight ends inside the distance is plus 170. I think Curtis is going to be an easy X out for me. If he doesn't get a first round knockout, I just don't really see how he ends up on the optimal lineup unless he's able to get multiple knockdowns along the way in a second or third round knockout, or even, multiple knockdowns and a decision could be okay too. But I just see this being a 15-minute striking match, not at a crazy pace. And I think Chris Curtis does enough to win and probably score around 80 points or so. I'm just not interested in 80 points in the 9K range this week. So for me, it's going to be dog or pass. I just don't think Griffin has much of a ceiling either, because I don't think he's going to land more than one takedown in this fight. I doubt he even shoots for more than one takedown. And I don't think he's knocking out Curtis. I don't think he's going to have a crazy pace. But he could be an underdog that wins. Maybe he scores in the 60s. That could cut it on this card. So I might have some Griffin exposure, but I have a hard time seeing me get to Curtis. What are you doing with this one, Sheets?
Yeah, I think I agree with you. I think this is like a 0-star. I mean, honestly, like you have everything you don't want in the favorite. First of all, he's competing with guys with more upside for openers. Second of all, it's a pure striking battle. And when you're in a pure striking match, all you really can look at is the inside the distance line. And the inside the distance line for his price is just terrible. So I think that, again, there's no way that unless some sim thing just forces me to play him, that I can ever get to him. And again, for all those reasons, again, I think Griffin on the other side of that, there's just no leverage you can get even playing him, because Curtis is just going to be one of those guys that's probably what? I don't know if you've done your ownership yet, but how is he going to be more than 10% owned? I mean, with his metrics, or maybe 15, just because he's got decent win odds. But that's not the type of guy to take a shot against, with an underdog who already has like very little upside. So there's no reason for me to play pretty much any of this fight.
Yeah, I do have Curtis sub 15% owned right now. Maybe it is going to be closer to 15. I think I have it at 14 right now, but maybe I'll lower it closer to 10 as we get closer to the card. But yeah, he's the first X out on the card for me. I'd rather play Mitch Ramirez than Chris Curtis personally. If Chris Curtis wins on this card in the first round, I might be figuring out other plans this week.
Yep.
Next one on the card, we have Chidi Njokuani minus 160 against Jake Matthews, plus 140. Fight ends inside the distance is plus 120, and this is our mid-range priced fight of the week with Chidi at 8,200 and Jake Matthews at 8K. I do like this one because it's right there in the mid-range. I don't have a strong feeling on who's going to win the fight. I think Cheick is the better striker at range. I think he's more dangerous. He's also dangerous if he can get in the clinch as well. But Matthews has pretty good boxing. I think he could and should look for takedowns in this fight. That's where he would have the edge, in my opinion. He just doesn't look for takedowns as often as I would like, and I've lost a lot of money relying on fighters to fight smart. So I don't know how much I want to trust Matthews, but he is an underdog that I'm picking to win. It's just because he has the plus next to his name, and I don't have a strong lean on this fight. So I just kind of talked myself into a Matthews underdog pick. I haven't played him on the betting line yet, but I do think I'll have to be overweight in DFS because I'm searching for underdogs. He's one that could win through the ground. I mean, he could get a finish. He's not much of a finisher, but I think he could really finish the fight anywhere. Cheick, on the other hand, I'm not trying to throw too much money into the pot by taking both sides. I'll get a little bit of him, but I'll for sure be underweight on Cheick and probably overweight to Matthews. What are you doing here, Sheets?
So the more I play UFC DFS, the more I run into this type of situation. So sometimes you'll have this $8,200 8K fight where, you have a big banger and that someone's, knocking the other guy out, and you have to play 100% of the fight, and that's kind of the way it is, right? But there are also all of these cards where the 8,200 8K fight just looks like crap as far as metrics go. Like the inside the distance line is really not great. I mean, you could make a case for Jake Matthews getting takedowns, but it's kind of reaching. And I sort of get inclined to just find ways to fade this. And then every single week, I regret it. Like every single week, these 8K, $8,200 fights that I just throw out because they don't have upside, they just are always freaking competing like for the optimal for no other reason than, like if no underdogs win, or if only one of them wins, getting this 8K, $8,200 fight in your lineup just opens up like so many more combinations. So I don't really like to look at even this fight as kind of something, great or not great. I just think it's almost necessary, like you mentioned. I mean, just because of this mid-range, because of that pricing, I always have to give just a little extra credit to this fight, even though I don't particularly like it. So I guess I would consider this like kind of a 3-star, because I would make it almost like a 1 or 2-star if it was just kind of on its own. But in the context of a slate where you need to kind of put lineups together, I think that I've learned to give these 8,200 8K fights a little more respect than it seems they deserve. And so I'm going to be probably over on that than I would otherwise be.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. Would you have a preferred play if, let's say, Matthews was 5% higher owned?
Not really. I mean, like, look, you could obviously say that I'd rather take the lower owned fighter, but I do believe that that Cheick is going to be probably higher owned. I mean, he's going to.
I do think I have Cheick like a little bit higher owned. Yeah.
I mean, he's got, he's doing better. He also has some big scores on his resume. Like if you look at Matthews, he never scores any points. I mean, never scores any fantasy points, even in his wins. You know what I mean? So I imagine that if you like Matthews, just because you like him in this fight, I mean, you should probably play him more in DFS, because Njokuani is definitely more popular than him, I think.
Yeah, I feel like Matthews is going to be one of my top underdogs just because he's an underdog. I'm picking to win. I just don't have faith in him scoring well. I don't even have faith in him winning. So I don't know what I'm going to end up doing. I mean, maybe this will be one where I do try to talk myself out of this fight if I have a way to do that, but we'll see. I haven't built the lineups enough to know what I can afford and what I can't afford. All right, next one on the list, we have Fatima Klein, minus 1,400, the biggest favorite on the card, against Melissa Martinez, plus 800. The fight ends inside the distance is minus 135. Klein is 9,900 on DraftKings this week. Similar to the Mike Davis thing, it's just really hard to get to. I think Klein has Martinez covered everywhere in this fight. I think she's the better striker. I think she's more dangerous there. But if this is a 15-minute striking match, that really gives Martinez her only chance to win, just putting it in the judges' hands. I think Klein could absolutely dominate her on the ground. She could land multiple takedowns or just one takedown in each round and control the fight on the ground from there. I do think she has a higher ceiling because of her wrestling path in this fight. She doesn't have as much quick bonus equity as Mike Davis would, but I think I would rather try to find a way to get to Klein over Davis. I really have a hard time seeing me get to either one of them, though, at 9,800, 9,900. And then Martinez on the other end, she needs to keep this fight on the feet. I just don't see her winning. I don't see her how she scores well if she does win. So I'll be Xing Martinez out, and it'll just matter if I can afford Klein or not in this one. What are you thinking?
Yeah, I really think it's, as I mentioned, I really think it's the same idea as Mike Davis. I will agree that perhaps Fatima Klein has more, just outright grappling upside than Davis, as you mentioned. And maybe she is a little more likely to win, I guess. But again, at 9,900, I wonder if it was Mike Davis against me, like if I would play him. You know what I mean? Like if he even could pencil in like 120 points or something. I mean, I guess 120, you have to take it. But it's just asking a lot, And listen, there are variations where, you get the right underdogs here. Like you get like Derek Lewis and Landwehr and Walter Walker and all the guys you talked about. Then you need, you can get Fatima Klein to outscore all these other guys over 9K. But all of that is just so unlikely, for Fatima Klein to outscore all these fighters. And you're now forced to take these $7,200-$7,300 guys instead of guys you could take when you play, say, Bonfam or Petrino or something like that. So it's just really hard to build like lineups or portfolio lineups with $9,900 fighters, even regardless. I mean, well, what's the same? She was 40-1. What's the difference? You know what I mean? She's still not going to get more than probably 120 points, and that's probably the upside of it. So I don't know. I'm again, probably if I get to her, it's going to be by accident. I'm going to run the Sims. I'm going to do some other funny stuff, which I probably shouldn't get into here. And I'll probably end up getting some, but certainly is not going to be on purpose. It's just really just bad DFS theory to play $9,900 fighters like that.
Yeah, I agree. I think even at 9,600, you get priced out of lineups a lot of the time, even if you score well. So 9,900, yeah, it's going to be really tough to get to, but it should be an easy win at least for Klein. Next one, we have Eduardo Mora minus 640 against Lauren Murphy, plus 465. Fight inside the distance is plus 195. Eduardo Mora's $9,500 on DraftKings. And again, that's probably just too much for me to pay on this card. I think she's going to win the fight, and I do think it's going to come through wrestling. She probably gets 2 to 4 takedowns in this fight, I'm thinking. Keeps enough ground time to win on the cards. But I don't think 2 to 4 takedowns will be enough because she's just not active enough, and she doesn't have enough cardio to go a hard 15 for her to really pay off a $9,500 salary. And it's going to be tough to finish Murphy as well. So Mora, not somebody I'm looking to get to. I'm not really trying to play Murphy either, but if Mora wants to strike with Murphy for 15 minutes, I think she could get robbed on the scorecards. I also think she could let Murphy put up 30 DraftKings points in a loss. Maybe I could get to a little bit of Murphy if I end up playing a lot of lineups, but to me, this is a fight I'm trying to get away from, and I think Mora wins. What do you think?
You added a really good bit of fundamental knowledge to the analysis here, and I'll get to it in a second. So Mora's inside the distance line is atrocious, right? So it's plus 200 at 90. What is he? 94, 9,500, whatever it is.
Yeah, 95.
Her only benefit to her is her takedown upside. Now, if you don't really have that big of a finishing upside, if you're 9,400, it's not enough to just get takedowns. Okay, it's got to be accompanied by like a lot of strikes, and a lot of volume and this type of thing. And your comment about her not being particularly active and lacking that 15 minutes of cardio like that, I just think that in the absence of a good inside the distance line, her upside is kind of capped. So I'm not particularly enthused with her either. I thought about the other side a little bit, the Lauren Murphy. Just almost for spite, because like everybody's just like all down on her. You know what I mean? Like she's off a layoff, and even when she's just coming off getting battered by Jessica Andrade, and even before that, people thought she kind of lucked her way into title shots, and she's going to give up all the takedowns or whatever it is. But she's tough, and like you said, if Mora somehow decides to go low IQ and get into a striking battle with Murphy, I mean, I can't really pick Murphy because she does only win the fight, like 20% of the time, I guess. And again, if Mora was going to be a little more popular, maybe I would take a shot. I got other ideas for a situation like this we'll get to later. So again, I'm considering this sort of what we say, like a 2-star. Again, I promise you guys, I mean, a lot of people are kind of psyched for me to be on here, and so far I've recommended like no fighters, maybe like 1 or 2, but that's just kind of the way it goes. I just don't think Mora's metrics warrant her price, and we'll get to others that are cheaper that make your lineups work better. So I'm kind of making this a kind of a grudging 2-star, actually.
Couldn't agree more. All right. Next one we have Morgan Charrier minus 270 against Nate Landwehr, plus 230. And I changed my preferred play in the last couple days on this one. I'm picking Morgan to get the win. I just think he is the cleaner striker. I also think he has the wrestling advantage. He should be able to land a couple takedowns in this fight, I think. Nate's also a slow starter. I think that'll help Morgan on the scorecards. But at 8,900, I really just don't think Morgan's going to do enough wrestling or enough on the ground when he does look to wrestle to score well in a decision win. And it's going to be tough to finish Landwehr as well. I mean, he has been knocked out, but I just don't know that in Landwehr's home state. I mean, maybe the aggression will work against him, but I kind of think that Landwehr is going to come out here very aggressive and give into the crowd, give into a high pace in this fight. And if Landwehr wins, I think he's going to have a good score no matter what, whether it's in a decision. He could knock out Charrier and be on the optimal lineup for sure at $7,300. But on a card where I'm really looking for underdogs, Landwehr in his home state, that sounds good to me. I think he's just a madman who will give into that. Maybe it works against him. He gets knocked out in the first round, and that's how Morgan makes it on the optimal lineup. But I feel like I'm going to be underweight Morgan, overweight Landwehr, even though I'm picking him to lose. I just think he has one of the highest ceilings for a live underdog on this card. It's hard to get away from him, I think. So I'm hoping my pick on Morgan to win is going to be wrong, because I will have more invested in Landwehr here. What do you think?
Yeah, Landwehr's got that. Landwehr in his last fight, like really, really got tooled on. I mean, like he people were expecting something similar from him in his last fight, because sometimes he comes out and just gives the people what they want. He had that insane fight against David Onama. Like if anyone goes back and watch that fight, like if you don't like UFC, I mean, you will love it after watching that one. And it's fight. What did he beat Emmers in one round or whatever we did to him? Yeah. And then his last fight, he came up just empty against was Duhu Choi or whatever, yeah, and just got just destroyed. So I mean, I think that we have this idea that we just really want him to come out and do well. You know what I mean? Like you said, it's in his hometown. He comes out. He doesn't put any defense up. He strikes it. He gives the people what they want. And I do think that, again, if he wins, boy, oh boy, it's going to be fun, right? It's going to be a lot of volume, and there's going to be a lot of points. So I do agree with that. I just think this Morgan Charrier, at the end of the day, like I said, if Landwehr just comes out and brings this pace, I don't know. I just think at the end of the day, it's going to feed more into Charrier. And from a betting perspective, I do think that there's kind of like this pro Landwehr bias and this anti-French bias, you know what I mean? Like in some way. And I don't know. I kind of like Charrier inside the distance here, even though it's not that big of a price. As far as DFS goes, I sort of changed my mind on this a little bit too. I originally had this as a 4-star. I mean, I really thought that you're supposed to just cram this fight or whatever it is But the more I think about it, like you said, it's no guarantee that Charrier smashes. Like it's one of those weird things that if Landwehr shows up like dead, like he did last week, sort of, I think actually like Charrier just kind of cruises more to an easy decision, and doesn't score all that much. I think the better Landwehr comes out in a weird way, the more fantasy points Charrier has to accumulate. Okay.
Yeah.
So I listen, we're getting at least in the price range that we could play. So I think that if I had to again pick one fighter from this fight to put in the pool and had to X the other one out, it would be Landwehr. Okay. Because if he does bring it, I mean, like 7,300, you just kind of have to have it. And I'll tell you something else. He's also kind of live to get some points in a loss, with a big, high-paced, high-volume thing, and maybe he just gets beaten at the end or something like that. So I think that's live. So I am going to keep it as a 3-star. And I don't know who I guess Landwehr I prefer over Charrier and DFS. But again, I went from 4-star to 3-star on this one.
Okay. Solid. I like that. Next one, I went from 5-star to 4-star, but you could talk me back into 5-star on this one. We have Junior Tafa minus 170 against Tuco Tokos plus 145. Fight ends inside the distance is minus 500 here. That's why I think it probably should be a 5-star. But I just don't know that I agree. And I picked it to go the distance. And if it goes the distance, really, there's only one side that I would want in my lineups, and that would be the Tokos side. I do believe Tokos could score well in a decision. Not great, but over 10x. If he's able to land a takedown in each round. Tafa really has zero ground game at all. He got out-wrestled by Usman, had nothing off of his back, could not get up. Tokos is not a good wrestler. He's not even good at keeping top control. But I think Tafa's bad enough that if he gets one takedown, Tokos could probably keep the rest of the round if he wants, and I think he could be active enough to put up a solid score. Tafa is minus 125 to win inside the distance, though. So if he does win, it's probably going to be a knockout, and that likely could be the first or second round, which is going to score well if that happens. So I like both sides of this fight, but my plan is if I was in a single entry, I think Tokos was my preferred play there. Maybe I end up with similar, close exposure when I put all my projections and everything into Saber Sim. If I end up with 20 to 50 lineups, I might have close to half on this one. But give me Tokos to pull off the upset. I'm just not a Tafa guy. I would not want to pay 170 on this guy against anybody in the UFC personally. But what are you thinking?
Yeah. So again, dispensing with what I think of, of the prices or anything like that. Remember what I said earlier. Okay. So we talked about Mike Davis with a minus 120 inside the distance line at 9,700, 9,800. Talked about Fatima Klein with an inside the distance line of minus 110 at 9,900, whatever she was. Talked about Eduardo Mora at 9,400 with a plus 220 inside the distance line. And you compare this to Junior Tafa, who's got just the same inside the distance line, but like $1,000 less. Okay. This is the play you just kind of have to make like on the metrics. Okay. And make this kind of like a number one, like kind of a 5-star, just kind of analytics play. I mean, you have a $8,600, was he 86 or 84? $8,600 fighter who is minus 120 or whatever inside the distance. You're just going to have to either play it or play against it. And we're going to get to that in a second. Okay. Because, when you have these types of metrics, you run this through a freaking computer 7 million times. It's just going to show up in the optimal too often. Now, with that said, because his metrics look so good, he's just forced to get owned here, okay, by optimizers, by everybody. And whenever you have a fighter who has very, very strong metrics, you always at least have to take a look at the other side, okay, because you're going to get leverage. And the great thing about the other side of this is that there is a clear path to victory in that, like you said, Junior Tafa, this is like the 5th time we mentioned this, has one of the worst takedown defenses there is. And listen, we've seen some really terrible fight IQ over the past however long we've been watching DFS and UFC or whatever. But I mean, Tokos is just can't be that stupid. You know what I mean? Like his coaches, whatever, can't be that bad and not at least try for takedowns. Okay, maybe he's not the greatest wrestler in the world, but that's literally the only path to victory. And it's one that's staring him so blatantly at the face that he has to try it. So, and if you look at his money line, it's like plus what, 150 or plus 160, whatever. So what this means is that 40% of the time or 45% of the time, not only is he going to win, but he's going to win getting takedowns. And when you win getting takedowns, you're going to score. And when you win getting takedowns and you win getting takedowns, you're going to score against a guy who looks so good on the metrics, you're going to get some really, really good leverage here. So I actually feel that this remains a 5-star. And again, probably because I'm not smart enough to challenge this money line. Like if you really think that it's a bad money line, it's going the distance, sure, you could try to fade it. But in DFS, I don't usually like to do that. Look, in the betting market, I got no problem doing stuff like playing Tokos by decision or something like that. But as far as DFS goes, I think you're just going to have to play both sides of this. So I do like both sides, Tafa and Tokos, quite a bit.
Yep, you just made me change it to a 5-star. I think it's a good fight just to be all over. You made me like Tokos more than I already did like him too. But great fight to target. I think this next one is also, we have Steve Garcia minus 125 against Calvin Kattar plus 105. Fight ends inside the distance is minus 210. Steve Garcia is 8,400 on DraftKings, and Kattar is 7,800. This is our only other mid-range fight on the card. And Garcia's coming off 5 straight knockout wins in the UFC. On the other end, we have Kattar, who has lost 5 of his last 6 fights. But we have a pick'em line here. I think that's really telling, actually. In my opinion, Garcia is very dangerous early in fights. He's aggressive. He goes for the kill. But Kattar has never been knocked out, and he's not going to be easy to put away. I think Kattar is the more skilled striker here. I think Kattar's the better minute winner here. And I also think that Steve Garcia's aggression could absolutely play against him, and he has been knocked down 5 times in the UFC. So I think Kattar's going to knock him out. I think Kattar should be favored in this fight, skill-wise, stylistically. I like Kattar here. He's going to be likely my highest owned underdog on the card. I'll be underweight to Garcia, but I'll have him more of as a hedge, I would say, because I'm going to have so much Kattar. Garcia does have 115-point upside because he's a first-round killer, but I just don't think he's going to knock Kattar out. So I'll go underweight there, and Kattar is my only bet on the card so far at plus money.
So this is definitely like an 8-star. Okay, like this is I could talk about this fight for literally an hour. With respect to DFS, when we won't do it, we'll maybe for 5 minutes. So here's a couple things. First of all, we're going to throw my career of predicting market movement into the garbage, because when I first saw this, Garcia minus 140 or something like that, which is where it started, which is why it was priced at 8,400, 7,800. I thought, you freaking kidding me? Garcia, all he does is like destroy people, and Kattar's washed. He doesn't want to fight in freaking forever. Garcia's going to end up being freaking minus 2-1. And he's going to be a freaking lock, and he's going to be 70% owned, and Kattar's going to be some good leverage. Shows what I know, okay? Like everybody that seems to know everything about the UFC has said, you know what? F this Garcia guy. He has not fought the same type of competition that Kattar has over the years, and they bid Kattar up to freaking pick him. So now, contrary to what I thought was going to happen, the exact opposite's happened. Kattar has become like this big money line play, sort of, so now it's like a pick 'em fight, and he's priced as if he should be a plus 140 underdog. The other thing that I was shocked at is I thought that Garcia was going to probably have like a minus, 110 inside the distance line or something, and Kattar much less. Turns out they basically have the same, like inside the distance line. I guess everybody sees, I guess, like, sharp, analysts like you see the same type of thing. That Garcia's going to go wild first round. Kattar's got a lot of experience. He'll fight him off, and then he'll get him out of there round 2 or 3 or something like that. So now what we have is kind of the opposite. I think that Kattar, because of this money line movement and because of this inside the distance line, I think he's going to get steamed like pretty hard. Like I don't listen. I don't want to influence what you're going to do. It's for your ownership projections. But this is the type of play that usually gets freaking steamed. And if that's the case, like if now all of a sudden somehow Garcia's less owned than Kattar because now all of a sudden he has kind of bad money line value, I think he's going to be a really strong play. So no matter how you slice it, you're just gonna have to play this fight. Now, again, whether you do 50% one, 50% the other, 60-40, and that's kind of up to you. But these inside the distance lines are just no joke. And this mid-range price is no joke. Now, again, in an old life, I would even say that if you think Kattar is going to be too popular for some reason, you can leave some money on the table, maybe. But I have reasons why I wouldn't want to do that on this card. But I think that this fight is certainly one that, I mean, it's kind of obvious, but I think it really stands out. And to fade this one is really asking for trouble.
Yeah, right now I have Garcia 27% owned and Kattar 31% owned.
Sounds
what are you
right.
thinking?
That sounds right to me. Yep.
Would just it being a 4% difference change your mind? Make Kattar, you still like Kattar more, or would you need like 10% to really be on the Garcia side?
Unfortunately, like the way I play, I just kind of like make some adjustments to projections and really focus in on like the ownership projection. And that's why I love using yours, and I come up with my own and look other places, because at the end of the day, I'm just going to just fire all the stuff into SaberSim anyway and like run the sims. And so you're really relying on your ownership projections being good. You know what I mean? To see how much you would get of. If I was playing one lineup and I had to choose between Kattar and Garcia, I'd probably buy a second lineup. I really wouldn't know which way to go.
Fair enough. Okay, cool. Yeah, I mean, great fight to target. It's going to be a good fight to watch as well. But I'll be rooting for Kattar. All right, next one we have Vitor Petrino -700 against Austin Lane +500. Fight ends inside the distance -800. Petrino's 9,600 on DraftKings. Austin Lane is 6,600. And I'm going to be heavy on Petrino because he's $300 less than Klein, $200 less than Davis. And I think he gets a first round knockout. I don't see any skill advantages for Lane in this matchup. His only real advantage would be his size. He is a real heavyweight. He's got a few inches height and reach on Petrino, but skill-wise, I just don't know how he wins this fight other than like a flash knockout. Petrino's coming off of a knockout. Maybe the chin goes down and Lane could hit him hard, knock him out. But aside from that, I think Petrino is the much better striker. He's the much more dangerous striker. And if he wants to avoid getting knocked out, he could wrestle Lane here and probably knock him out on the ground too in that same round. So I like Petrino. I think he scores pretty decent no matter how he wins here. And Lane would just be somebody I have to throw in because I need the price. I'd prefer him over Ramirez. I prefer him over Martinez, but he's definitely not somebody I'm trying to get to. And if I could fade him, then I'll fade him. What are you thinking, Chief?
Really, the Petrino is inside the distance line is through the roof. I mean, it's minus like 400 or something like that, maybe even minus 500. It's just light years ahead of everybody else. And he's cheaper than a couple of the guys. If you're playing cash or you want like one lineup or whatever it is, I mean, this is to me like where you start. I mean, you play him and then you play somebody from the Kattar Garcia fight, someone from Tapatokos, and then you're just kind of on your way. You know, I think this is clearly the easiest of the favorites to play because of the metrics. He's going to be, I imagine, the highest owned. It just has to be. I mean, with these metrics.
Yeah, and also, I might have Taliesin a little higher, over, but right there with Petrino.
We'll get there. Yeah. So aside from the main event, but yeah. So I mean, yeah, okay. Austin Lane did get a win, taken down to Spain, which was kind of an obvious way for him to win. If he goes for takedowns here, he's going to get subbed. You know what I mean? Like, I agree with you. I don't really see much of a path, but I'm looking at this like. So if he's plus 500, what does that mean? He wins the fight 15% of the time, something like that.
16, 17%. Yeah.
I mean, how bad is that? You know what I mean? Like he's going to be 8% owned against probably the most popular or second most popular fighter on the slate. He's a guy I know I'm gonna get to. Okay, just because Petrino's like the best play that everybody knows. You know what I mean? So I just have the feeling I'm gonna have to get to him, and I have no idea how he's gonna win. I just know that according to these odds, he's gonna win the fight. Again, like being old, I've seen too much stuff. He's gonna win some of the time, and some of the time means more of the time than Melissa Martinez is gonna win, more of the time than Mitch Ramirez is gonna win, and probably the same amount of the time as Lauren Murphy's going to win. You know what I mean? So I'm probably going to have some Austin Lane. I'm not going to force him in or anything like that, but I know I'm going to end up having to get to him.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I think if he does win, it's probably like 90 points, 100 points, because it would be just a big round one knockout where he's just the bigger guy and he can somehow bully Petrino. But, man, I just don't see that happening. But, yeah, I mean, he is somebody you kind of have to force into lineups if you're making a lot of them. And if I do make more than 20, he'll end up making my pool.
Although you can go one step further, it's not even that. Like if you use Saber Sim or any type of sim product, it's not even that you're going to force him. I don't think you're going to avoid it. You know what I mean? I think that if you do any process that factors in ownership at all, I think I think you'll see. I mean, when people run this stuff through Saber Sim, if you don't make any like X outs or changes, I haven't run them yet. Saber Sim hasn't even put their stuff up yet, so I couldn't even tell you. I got this feeling that people are going to get more Austin Lane than they're comfortable with. And I would not change it. I'll just say that.
Interesting. What would you guess on Lane's ownership then?
I think his ownership's going to be really low. And now we're going to get into something else, right? So I think his ownership's going to be like less, like maybe 10%. But because again, if like enough people again use Saber Sim and some of these sim products that they'll end up getting to him, maybe that'll boost his ownership a little bit. And then you get this whole GTO thing that the more he's owned, the less you're going to want to play him or whatever it is, you know? So, that's for another discussion. But, again, whenever I have like the best play on the slate, that's going to be also very popular. I'm always going to get a little bit of the opponent.
Yeah, cool. All right. Makes sense. All right. Co-main event is Gabriel Bonfim coming in as a minus 425 favorite against Stephen Thompson at plus 325. Fight ends inside the distance, minus 160. Bonfim is priced at 9,300 on DraftKings. That puts Thompson at 6,900. Nice. I think this is going to be really like 42 years old for Thompson. I just don't see him getting another win really in the UFC. I think he's one of the best kickboxers we've ever seen. If this fight does stay a distance, I think he's going to beat Bonfim. It could be all 3 rounds. He could maybe knock Bonfim out. But I just don't think that's the case. I think Bonfim's going to come in here aggressive. He could knock out Thompson in the first round. He's a good striker. He's a dangerous striker. But that's where you're playing with fire if you want to strike with Thompson. The easy path to victory is to take Thompson down, and Bonfim is dangerous on the ground. He could submit him in any round, and he could also just grind him out for 3 rounds if he wants to. I do think Bonfim probably wins this fight 8 out of 10 times like the odds suggest, and I'm going to get a good amount of them because he's 600 cheaper than Klein. He's 500 cheaper than Davis, and he could win in the first round, whether it be a knockout or a submission, and a decision is going to have to come through the ground as well. So Bonfim's my preferred play. Thompson, I'm not going to X him out at 6,900. I think if he wins, he might knock out Bonfim. So I'll play a little bit of him, but Bonfim's somebody I just see me getting to quite a bit, actually. What are you thinking?
So first is going to be my DFS analysis, which people should pay attention to. Then I'm going to talk some vibes, which you guys really should mute, but I'm going to tell you them anyway. So Bonfim, 9,300, like you said, cheaper than all those other clowns with the same inside the distance line. Okay, so Bonfim was what, minus 115 or so inside the distance. Also has takedown upside, like you said. If he reads the program, he will see that the way to beat Thompson is taking him down. And you're supposed to play him a decent amount. You can almost make the I was about to say you can almost make the case he's as good a play as Petrino, but minus 500 inside the distance is just a lot better than minus 130. So from a DFS perspective, he certainly is kind of a strong play. Now, okay, here are the vibes. Here's the unfortunate reality is that I have this terrible memory in my head, okay, that's spinning around and I just can't get it out of my head. And the memory is of Gabriel Bonfim as a big favorite fighting Nicholas Dalby. Okay. And Nicholas Dalby is not 42, but he's not 25. Okay. And Bonfim decided to get into the striking thing or whatever. And then after like 1.5 to 2 rounds, he just completely gassed. And Dalby totally took over and tooled on him and knocked him out in the 3rd round. Okay. Stephen Thompson's 100 years old or whatever, but the guy is in insane shape. All right. He doesn't really lose to people that don't try to wrestle him. Okay. I remember that freaking Kevin Holland fight where he just pulled one out of the father time thing and just destroyed him. He looked like he was 25 years old. Okay. I just have this freaking vision of like the same thing freaking happening. Like Bonfim, just for whatever reason, either can't take him down or just decides, like you said, he's got a good he's a good striker, right? So he just gets into the striking battle, and then like he gets hit one time by Thompson, and he's like, I'm not gonna let this Thompson guy outstrike me. And he just keeps on getting after it. Next thing you know, the same thing happens, and Thompson knocks him out in the 3rd round, and I'm pissed that I don't have more of him. Okay. So from a DFS perspective, yes, you're supposed to play Gabriel Bonfim or whatever, but just to full disclosure, I am betting Thompson by KO in round 3. It's probably going to be like $1 billion to 1, whatever it is. And I am really inclined to just give myself a little more of Stephen Thompson than I otherwise would get, just because of that path to victory is just so memorable. It's just happened. And Bonfim is gonna get played. And there's no way that I X Thompson out. And if I get a little too much of him, look, you know what? It's the second to last fight on the card. So I'm not going to be dead from playing him for like 4 hours. You know what I mean? I'm kind of into this idea that Thompson actually can perform similarly and really bust a lot of Bonfim lineups. But anyway, from a DFS perspective, yes, Bonfim, very, very strong play, cheaper than those other guys, and that's kind of where I am.
I think you talked me into a little bit more Thompson.
Oh, no.
Thompson wins round 3 KO. You can get it plus 4,000 on FanDuel. It looks like your best one.
Oh, there we go.
Not bad.
What's
And
that,
if he wins, I do think it would be a late TKO.
What's that, 40 to 1?
Yeah.
So instead of playing an extra like $15 lineup in like a stupid MLB GPP, throw $15 onto that thing. You know what I mean? Yeah. And it's like, I think it's got a better chance than your one $15 entry in an 11-game MLB slate is. So I would give that a shot.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be shocked if it happened. But yeah, we'll see. I think it's going to be a good main event. It'll really tell how good Bonfim is, I think. So a nice test against somebody who would be a good name to beat as well.
Yep.
All right, next one's pretty much an all-in fight for me. It's going to be Taliesin Teixeira, minus 265 against Derek Lewis, plus 225. Fight inside the distance is minus 900 on this one. We got Teixeira, 9K on DraftKings. That puts Lewis at 7,200. I think this one's going to end in the first round either way. Both guys are strikers. Teixeira is aggressive. Lewis is not aggressive until he wants to be aggressive. It would be smart of him to come out firing in this one. He's live for the quick win bonus as an underdog here. But Teixeira is just the more talented striker. He has more tools in his striking arsenal. And I think this is a setup fight for him to get a highlight reel over a big name as a main event. So my preferred play is going to be Teixeira, but there's a lot of 9K fighters I want to play this week. There's not many 7,200 fighters who have 125-point upside like Lewis does. So if I'm building and I start with Teixeira, I can't figure out what I want to do there. I'm fine dropping to Lewis in a single entry and then figuring out my lineup from there. I'll just be targeting it heavily with hand builds, and I'm sure SaberSim's going to give me a ton as well. I won't force an all-in with my SaberSim lineups, but I just think this fight ends in the first round with a knockout, maybe even a body shot from Teixeira. But I like Tex to get the win here. What are you thinking, Sheets?
So first of all, again, this is one of those fights where despite it being a 5-round fight, it's very unlikely to become a 5-round fight. And more to the point, the benefit of the 5-round fight from DFS scoring does not really apply to this fight. You know, like sometimes when you have these 5-round fights that are really popular because they project all that well, it's because there's going to be a lot of stuff going on, like a lot of striking and a lot of takedowns and things like that can add up where you get those extra 2 rounds. It's going to project higher. But this fight is if it goes the way both these fighters want it to go, really, it's going to end soon. And if it gets to 5 rounds, I don't think it's scoring. You know what I mean? So those extra 4 or 5 rounds doesn't really help this fight, and yet it's still going to be really popular. Now, would it be like, would Teixeira be 50% owned if it were a 3-round fight? Maybe. I mean, I don't know. It's possible, but it's I think people are giving a little bit too much of the projection to the 5 rounds as they usually do in this thing. So yeah, I mean, he's favored to win. He's minus 240 to win. He's big, he's favored to finish inside the distance. He's quicker, all that stuff. Derek Lewis is, listen, he's always live, right? He's always live for a KO. So you're going to unfortunately have to get, or fortunately, you'll have to get some of him because for all the reasons I said before. Like, you have someone that looks so good on the metrics and is also really popular. If the opponent looks even remotely decent on the metrics, you're just going to have to play some of it. So Derek Lewis is somebody that you're going to have to play. I mean, you just are. You're just going to get a lot of leverage on a guy who has a big ceiling, and he's going to win the fight. What, 25% of the time? 30% of the time. So that's definitely the case. I'll just throw a couple of things out there, just for fun. Like, if you want another terrible bet that you can make, right? So apparently this Teixeira has actually a BJJ background, like way in the past. He hasn't really had to use it, but it's in there, okay? And another thing that I don't know if people have noticed, that Derek Lewis, like in his last fight, he actually got a takedown. So I don't know what the odds are. I'm inclined to do this to kind of, this has got to be $1 billion. I hope so. I was going to bet the fight to end by submission, and the easy way to do that is play Teixeira by submission. But this like weird, like mad scientist part of my brain, which I really don't want to even think about, has this weird Derek Lewis by submission of like 4,000 to 1 in my head. I don't really want to do that either because I can't like really like look at my children, you know what I mean, and tell them it's that. But I could play the fight to end by submission, which could be pretty big odds anyway. So again, I'm just being transparent. That's always my goal. Is I am going to probably take a shot at something like that. So that's that. As far as DFS goes, yeah, definitely going to have both of these. You want to look at some of these questions in here before we
yeah, if you want to look for any, let me know.
So
and I'll read off a couple. We got fight ends in submission. 1 second. We got fight ends in submission only plus 600 actually.
Wow.
So not as big as I was thinking in that one. And then another one that I was looking at was that fight ends in round 1 is only minus 125. Ugh. If this fight makes it out of the first round, I mean, a second round knockout from Teixeira might not be enough at 9K with all these other guys in the 9K range. So maybe I won't force an all in for that reason, but I feel like it ends in round 1. But what questions are you thinking?
What does Teixeira by decision look like?
Teixeira by decision is 1,200.
Yeah, I don't know. Okay. So I was looking at Brian rattled off a couple of things. Yeah, I mean, I agree with most of your points here. 42-year-old in shape is not the same as 30-year-old in shape. Yeah, like these are all very, listen, all your comments about these fights are very, very valid. They fighting for your money, kill for your money in Nashville, Morgan's overrated. I mean, these are all kind of cool. And those takes are very viable for betting. You know what I mean? Like if you have a take like that and you think that the fight is mispriced in some way, then yeah, I mean, that's what the betting market's for, is to have some fun with that. But I mean, just one thing I've learned, I mean, honestly, like when it comes to DFS, you just can't do it. I mean, you're going to have to, at least to some degree, like accept the money line and the props are what they are. And again, maybe you're really good. Maybe you're better than the line is, and that's possible. But it's just listen. I've been doing this for a long time, not just DFS, but like all kinds of betting markets for a long time, and that's quite a leap to make, honestly, with like billions of dollars being placed in these markets to just look at this like, boy, oh boy, minus 190. He shouldn't be the favorite. That's kind of asking for trouble to take that kind of take into a liquid market like that. So for DFS, I'm just sort of inclined to just go with the props and the lines just kind of being what they are.
Yeah, I think that's really the way to go about it. Unless, if you're making a bet on somebody because you think the line's off, then I would adjust my DFS that way as well. But I don't really usually think lines are that far off. But yeah, I think this is going to be a fun card with a lot of possible high-scoring fights, a lot of early finishes. I appreciate you coming on. Sheets, do you have anything you want to promote or any last words?
No, I mean, I can't believe this didn't turn into a train wreck. It's actually quite amazing.
No, I figured it would be good, and I think you changed my mind on a couple fighters, maybe even a couple ownerships. I might have to go in there and adjust as well.
Hey, we got a shout out. We got a shout out to Title. Living the good life on vacation. Hopefully that he gleans a little something from this and pays for the vacation with the SHIPIT, right? I gotta figure out how to do that right. And hopefully again, like in the Discord channel, listen, I hope to be helping you guys out, SHIPIT Nation out with a lot of other stuff. And one thing that I always really enjoyed about it was the activity of the Discord channel, specifically on Fight Night. I love it. When people get really, really into it and sweating it and stuff like that. It's really that community that I don't know. I think it's really a big deal. And listen, there are a lot of other sites out there, and it's funny. Like one thing I learned is that so many sites have like their different little niches where they have good communities. And again, I don't really even look at SHIPIT Nation for like a lot of all the sports yet. But the MMA stuff. I mean, like this whole community is just really, really positive, and it's positive also in kind of a cool way. People tilt, and tilting's cool, in a way or whatever. And I see people like them when they watch the fights. I mean, think about that. Think about how cool it is that when you're watching the fight, you have your Discord channel up. You know what I mean? Like kind of sweating it there. It's a testament that like people are in like-minded positions. They're sweating the fights. They're watching them, and they're all kind of rooting either for each other, against each other, or whatever. So hopefully I can continue to help out with this stuff. And I appreciate you having me on.
Heck yeah. Discord's always fun. I like to have the fights on this computer or this monitor over here, Discord on the other one. And when I tilt with other people tilting, I just think it makes a lot of sense. We're all tilting together on the same losses. But yeah, man, Sheets will be in Discord. I'll be in Discord. You guys can go check out all of our MMA and everything over at SHIPITNation.com. You can use code UFC75. That'll get your first month for just $24. All access. And we got NFL coming up soon as well. We actually have, I was talking to somebody that works with SHIPIT Nation today, and he said we got our first NFL game starting this month, actually. So be here before you know it. I can't wait for NFL season. Hopefully this is a good card. We can help build our bankrolls. Good luck to you, Sheets. Good luck to everybody listening. Let's ship it.